20 minutes before the next committee meeting, so what I'm going to suggest, board members are over here, but I'll try to look on that side as well, that we maybe break it down and invite some key personnel to our next meeting to discuss this in depth. The way I see it, we need to look at job descriptions, and I believe we would want HR and also the mayor's office to be here to discuss that. I would like to review tonight, though, Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33A, in respect to some of the comments made in this report. There's an employee survey. I don't want to underestimate the work and the efforts of our city employees when it comes to that survey, and maybe take into account some of their notes, and obviously training. And this whole issue is about succession, and as it notes, some departments have a pretty good succession plan. They have deputy chiefs and so forth. Others need some additional resources, I would say. So with that said, is the committee members okay with us looking at Chapter 44, Section 33 tonight, and then maybe invite the mayor, the HR director to discuss the job descriptions and so forth?
If I may,
Yes.
so I actually met with the mayor and with HR, and and my feelings are pretty much the same, that there really isn't much as the council can do as a whole. I'm perfectly willing to discuss this for tonight, but I think moving it on for future meetings, I just want to have the mayor's office and the HR come in off time to appease us when you can go to them as counselors. This was brought to us as for information only. I think it's a great resource. If you plan on running for mayor, then I think it's a great resource, and for the mayor's office to have. It's great for the HR. But if we have directors come in, we can't discuss an assistant with them because we can't add anything to the budget. So I don't want to dangle a lot of things in front of the directors and say, hey, we can get you this and that when we can't. So I think it's a great resource for the mayor, but unless we can add things to the budget, which we cannot, then it's just for for information only. As the chair, you can do whatever you would like.
And I'm glad you brought that up, though. Indeed, you're correct. And my intent was not to bring in all the department heads, the HR director and the mayor, to see where they stand on this, because the major homework in this is meant for HR as well as the mayor. But I'm glad you brought up that section that we're going to hopefully discuss tonight, and that's Chapter 44, Section 33A. Indeed, it comes back to this full body before we change any position, as written in state statute, and it's an ordinance requirement. So it requires the majority of this board, this council, to make a change. So indeed, it will have to come back here. This is just an overview, as you said, but my intent is at least to get the input from HR as well as the mayor's office to this committee so we can report back out. And we don't have to extend it too far, but that was my intent. But Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The legislation that you're talking about, was that included as part of the packet?
No, it's something I was discussing with our administrator, and I can give you a copy of it. I can give you both a copy of it if you want. I don't know if you've had it in the package, but it talks about the ordinance.
Yeah, maybe in
What
the...
I'm giving you is highlighted a little bit, David, but you can keep that one.
Yeah, thank you.
So basically, it talks, in general, it's a state law. What it says basically is that when you go to change a position, it's based on the ordinance. So it requires, and I think, it was brought up that it requires this full body, at least 2/3 of our vote. So that would be required for any position. We just saw that with the parking clerk, where it had to come to this full body for any change. So in my view, this is going to be a lengthy process, but when you read the report is trying to say it could be a lengthy process and that we have better things to be doing, is the way I read that statement. And the way I look at it, this is important for us to be doing. We're deciding on positions in this city. We decide on the budget. So in my view, it should come to this full body for review, and we should not relinquish that opportunity that we have at this present time. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I agree as much as that, we are, this is operations and oversight, and human resources is part of that. So I agree as far as we need to at least have a view as far as what's going on in the city. I would like to see, as part of this discussion, not necessarily tonight, but at some point, basically, what are the list of roles and responsibilities, the job positions, that we have, we are engaged with from the city council, and what other people can be hired without going through the city council. So, or however that, there's a line, it seems, that some people can come in and we need to approve it, and some people have to basically, the mayor can just pick them, and that's all fine. I'd like to see what that list is as far as roles and responsibilities. I think also it would be good to, have job descriptions, not for us to, create ourselves or supervise, but just, review and approve this. We are a reviewing body. We are supposed to go over paperwork. And, as far as, if there is any person in a role and position in the city, that if the city council asks them to come in off hours for a meeting, that's part of the role of their job. If we need to get their information. I don't see that as being a pressed position. I think, getting the HR, someone from the mayor's office, not necessarily has to be the mayor, but could be Trish, just come down and discuss these issues. I think that'd be fine.
Thank you. And again, the whole intent of this review was to determine what Collins Center was trying to relay to us. And as I said, the first point was, in my view, that we need to follow the ordinance. And we can use the parking clerk, for example. We just saw that one. Yeah, it seemed like a position that wasn't a part-time position, so it wasn't as a full-time, but typically any position being created would have to come to this full body. That's what the ordinance and the state law says. So with that said, yes, it will be a lengthy process if there are new positions being created. I think there's a lot of existing positions, but if there's going to, say, be a deputy chief position created, it would come to this full body. That's automatic. So in that case, this full body makes the decision, and it has to be a 2/3 vote if it's a newer position. Old positions, that'd be a good list to have. Yes, Councilor Dumas.
So, being chair of personnel, when we hired Ms. Purple to come on board, her main responsibility was to go through those job descriptions and salaries. That's what she is doing now. That's what this report reflects. So if you want to go through the job descriptions, that's great, but that's HR. This report is telling you where they should kind of key into, and that's what they're doing. So there's really, again, not much for us to do. So that's why you had the parking clerk come before us. That's why you had the fire chief and police chief salary come before us, because they realized that this salary increase. That's why they want a new assistant commissioner for DPW, because they realized they need another one. I believe there was another one that I can't think of. So they're going through those job descriptions based upon this report, which is why we have it. So I don't know what else we as a council can do. I think once they come to us, as the mayor comes to us with a new job description or with a new position, it's because of this report. So I think they're doing their due diligence. So after talking to the mayor and talking to HR on my own time, they're in agreement, this is what we need to do. If councilors want to do that on their own time, they can, but they're actively doing it. So I'm not trying to sweep this underneath the rug by any means, because if you want to look at my copy, I made notes on every single paragraph, what I think should be done, so then I can follow up with the mayor and say, hey, these aren't getting done, why is morale low, what are you doing to affect it? That's what I can do as a council on my own term, because I care about this report. As a council as a whole, I don't know how much we can do. And that's just my 2 cents. If you want to discuss it more, we can open up to other people. Maybe other people disagree. I just don't see, I personally worked in corporate. I hate talking about a meeting just for the sake of a meeting. If we can't get anything done and we can't be effective, why are we going to keep meeting and then bring other people in when they know they have their job to do? Again, just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would echo the sentiments of Councilor Dumas, and I was one who voted not to send this to the committee. This is in the mayor's hands. Yes, it's a good report and lots of information, but the mayor is the only one who can act on it. We can't hire people. We get the budget. We can't add positions. They have to be in the budget. Our responsibility currently is, and since I've been on the council, we have actually approved changes to job descriptions. It is in the code that that's our job. I'm not going to relinquish that responsibility. I don't think our job is to write the descriptions or to argue that they should be this versus that, but we should be able to look at them and know what they are. And I think if anybody wants them, call Trish or call HR. They'll give you whatever you want. They're not hiding anything. And if they feel that they need to be brought down once they're gone through from start to finish, they will bring them down to us and we can then look at them. But I'm sorry, sitting here and having the mayor and HR come down and go through this is not something I want to be a part of. And to me, this should have been accepted and placed on file. And I would urge the committee to just do that now. Just move it out of committee and bring it back to the full council to just accept it. But I'm not on the committee.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr. Chair.
Lawson.
So again, I'll go to the opening paragraph in the letter the mayor sent down. This is for information. There's some nice things in there. You are correct, Councilor. We approve job descriptions. So when they change, we've got to approve them, all right? If you want to go back, or the committee wants to go back and look at all of them, why? What are you trying? Do that on your own time, because I'm not sure what value you're going to do tying up the committee or the council to do that. If there's something you're interested in, that's a good homework assignment. Go ahead and do that. But again, this is for information. There's no action for us to take to do something here. I mean, what is it that we want to do? When they change the job descriptions, they send them to us. If he wants to change a salary ordinance, he has to send them to us. If he wants to add deputies, lieutenants, he has to send them to us. I mean, if there's something we want, we say, hey, we want you to have an assistant something, well, go ahead and ask that or request that. But this is a good piece of information. And the real thing is, 6 months from now, how are we doing? Is there things that we learned on it that we wanted to do? That worked out well or maybe didn't. Again, this is a committee's report. Doesn't mean everything they wrote in here is perfect. This is their recommendation. We got piles of reports from DOR to change financial ways and positions and how we do things. We selectively pick the ones that we think work well and the ones that aren't. I mean, that's two people's idea, which is good. I'm not belittling it, but doesn't mean everything that's in here is something the committee needs to address. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Anyone else before I? Yes.
I'll just add, originally I looked at it and I thought, well, it's worth talking about to understand it, but as I read through it more deeply and listening to the conversation today, I find myself thinking we've hired excellent people, and this feels like it's in the hands of the department heads to manage their department, and it feels outside the scope of, like, speaking for myself, my role, but our role, it feels like it's micromanaging department. I don't want to go down that road where it feels like we're micromanaging departments and trying to have influence something that we're not directly involved with. So I think the information, I'm glad this exists. I would love to, a year from now, hear, hey, what's the status? But seeing this as just an information-only report at this time and filing it does make sense to me.
Council Perman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate everyone's comments. I know when I was sort of reading the report, I think it's well situated in an issue that we're seeing across municipalities, right, of being able to get people who are willing to work in the government sector. That's a huge issue, right, of getting, a lot of people are retiring, there's a loss of institutional knowledge. Most stark for me was the service within the city about how many new people have been hired just because there's been an influx of people retiring. And so I see this conversation more, I think, about what are some of the takeaways that we just want as a council to be aware of. I do recognize how much is sort of left within HR and the mayor's hands. The only thing that's really top of mind for me regarding this would be, when would be an update where we might hear about the status of some of the objectives. I think the report was very comprehensive, and I trust all of our staff to do their due diligence in carrying this out. And then more broadly, like at a systemic level, when things have come down from the mayor's office, right, it's an individual position. And I know often the mayor has discussed about wanting to amend that process, so it's just a little bit more streamlined. And so even things about the vacation time and the salary, scope, I think allows that flexibility because of the competitive job market. And that's just something for the council to be aware of, even if we can't act on it directly. I do think it brings awareness to the issue overall. So that's sort of my 2 cents, but I do think that even just bringing it up tonight, even if it doesn't, result in a ton of activity later on, is showing that we care a lot about our staff and the quality of the services here in our city.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, you stole my fire almost, but that's okay, because that's what I was going to leave with, is that this report was done to look at succession planning. That was the main reason. That's why I would like to hear from the mayor and HR, not all the department heads, to come to us and say, listen, we're going to work on, we don't need police and fire, they already have a system in place. How about some other departments? As we all know, we just went through COVID, and I asked the mayor just last week, we need to do a hot wash. Where were the problems? Where were the not problems? Did we have enough staffing to handle it at the Board of Health level? That's the kind of stuff that this report's trying to get at. What if the health agent and the public health nurse vanished? What do we do then during a situation like that? That's what this report's about, is succession planning. And obviously looking at our job descriptions, but that's a length. It took 1.5 years to do this report. I feel that if we take at least one more committee meeting to just meet with the mayor, ask the questions that need to be asked about succession planning. HR may not be ready for another year or two to have all the job descriptions, but maybe we could ask, which ones are you planning first? Learn about that. Ask HR, how much work is this going to take? Do you need more resources? If they need resources, we need to hear that now. If this is above and beyond a 40-hour position that HR is handling. So those are the type of questions I feel we should ask. And again, not underestimate all the work, and as you mentioned, Council Perman, that our city employees put into this. We owe it to them to make sure they're comfortable with the fact that if their boss was to not be here, what do they do next? This is what this whole report was, the basis of this report. So what I'm asking for is not go through each job description. I think that is more or less sits in the office of HR. I think it's important, though, as councilors, that we know where we're headed with other departments that may not have enough depth when it comes to their department, and learn about it and see which departments may need more depth. It might be DPW. It could be another department right here in City Hall. These are the type of things we were planning back when September 11th happened. We were planning this back then, and unfortunately, with everything the way it gets, we got all busy. Continuation of operation plans was the name of it back after September 11, 2001. It was called the COOP. And unfortunately, it did get dropped by not just the city of Marlborough, by the communities within this whole area. So where do we stand with continuation of operations if we don't have a succession plan in place? That's what this report details. And that's what I'd like to see this committee overview with the mayor and HR. We don't have to go into details of their job descriptions. If you don't want to even get involved with the employee discussion in the back, That's fine. Probably not meant for this committee anyways, but it was good substance for us to learn as counselors to know how the staff that we support handle their daily jobs. And in my view, it's worth the time, at least for another half hour to an hour, to have HR, someone from the mayor's office, if you don't want the mayor, to come to this committee to review that. That's what I'm asking of this committee. So I'll leave it at that. Yes, go ahead, Councilor.
And again, I'm not on the committee, but I guess I have to think of the comment that is in my head right now, and it's micromanaging. The mayor got this report. The mayor was kind enough to send it to us as information. When the mayor's ready to act on it, the mayor will send down various orders. I don't know that the mayor has a succession plan based on this yet. So we're going to put him on the spot, come down and tell us something he doesn't even know yet? I mean, he's got to be thinking along some of it because the budget's coming up. So does he have anything that's going to be impacted in the budget that's based on this report? He'll let us know. But I'm sorry, Chairman, there's nothing that the mayor is going to come down and talk about that isn't just in this report unless it's action that he's going to take, at which point it will be on our agenda, and then we can act on it.
Thank you. What I would ask again, and I appreciate your comments, but let's ask now. It doesn't hurt to ask now. I guess being in emergency preparedness for the majority of my career, it's not something that we should just let go. It's time sensitive in my view. Continuation of operations is time sensitive. Tomorrow, if something was to happen and we were to just lay this on the table and not know where the mayor stands in HR, I don't think it's fair to the city as a whole. We represent our constituents. I think they'd like to know as well. Not just me, not just this body, but I think our residents would like to know, where does Marlborough stand if we had an emergency? Are we ready? Do we have a succession plan for such a situation? And this is a field I've been in too long to not know that you need to take action and get information as soon as possible. I think it's fair to the residents that we as a public committee get that from at least HR and the mayor, and then we can accept it after that and place it on file. But go ahead, Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We just went through a 2-year crisis as far as COVID goes, and I thought Marlborough itself handled it extremely well. Could communications have been better? Maybe. Should we have a postmortem, which is the term that comes from high tech? Probably. But as far as this report, what came out of me in this report is, delegation of signature authority in a variety of departments, how that gets clarified, and then cross-training, people getting trained in multiple areas. There's other industries where things like that are handled well, and I think at some point I'd like to have this being discussed. But, this was given to the mayor in January, and if we're going to give some time for him to respond, I'm not sure if 2 months is enough. And it might be worthwhile to just postpone this and let it just hang out there until we get to a point where the mayor is comfortable to sit down and talk about this, because he's made some progress on this. That way, it's still in play. Yeah. We don't have to take any action right now. We take action at some point in the future when the mayor is coming down with a new set of job requirements and stuff like that, and we can talk to it at that point. Does that make any sense?
If I may, I can answer that. I think that does make sense. It's March. Budget's coming up in May. Maybe about that same time. I know Councilor Roby mentioned it could be in the discussion of the budget. So maybe we can lay this on the table for 2 months. We'll be in the month of May, and bring it back up on the table at that time. And who knows, there may be information coming down before that, which would be helpful for, I know as my concern would be to know how we're planning for succession of positions if something was to happen. And again, I'm honest about the fact that being in emergency preparedness for that many years, you don't want to wait till it's too late. I'm not saying tomorrow it's going to happen, although I did say you don't know if it could happen tomorrow. I think laying it on the table for a couple months is reasonable, unless the mayor or HR would like to say, hey, we'd like to meet with you before that. I would accept that and set up another meeting. So if the committee so wishes, we can vote to lay it on the table for 2 months, see where it's at that time, and then bring it back to this committee and the full body. I hope everyone's here for that meeting as well.
Just not to put you on the spot, Mr. Chairperson, but have you met with HR or the mayor about this report?
No, I wanted it to be in a public meeting, so the committee would know, but not just the committee. We're being televised to our residents.
I respect,
That's why.
with all due
I gave
respect,
you my answer.
I get
That's
that.
why.
But I think the heads up or some type of notification to say, hey, what are your thoughts about this report ahead of time, rather than having that now the expectation, and now I know I can go into Ms. Purple's office anytime and say, hey, what about the succession plan? What are you doing with it? At any time. And we all can. I met with the mayor. Mayor, what are you doing with this? And we had a good, honest conversation about it. That's where you as a counselor can do your due diligence personally. Now, your thoughts on this personally are now affecting the council as a whole when you can meet with the mayor and HR one-to-one to follow up with this report. It's information only. We got the information. We can utilize it to your best advantage. And you personally, as counselors, just like I am, with my notes, can follow up and say, hey, what are you doing with this report? Which is why, to bring it back in 2 months, I don't see the point. Even you want to discuss with the mayor what you think you could add to the budget, or talk to different departments and say what you want to add based upon this report, go for it. But that budget is being discussed with right now for our May meeting. So if there's something that you want to discuss and bring to the budget, you should have already had it by now. So 2 months is not going to make a difference. If you want to bring this up personally, go for it. But I can't support to bring this back in 2 months. It's not going to, nothing's going to change in 2 months, because this is information only for us.
And if I may, I can answer that. My intent was to have HR here tonight, but our meeting ends in about a minute. Just too much of a short time period. My intent was to invite the mayor and HR, so before this meeting, I set up a schedule for the next meeting, thinking it wouldn't be fair to the mayor or HR to only have 10, 20 minutes. So that's the first reason why you don't see HR and the mayor here, because with that amount of time given in a meeting, like I say, ends in a minute or two, I didn't think it was fair to them. So yes, I can easily reach them. I was planning to reach them to invite them to the meeting, but to a meeting where we would have maybe an hour to review this. So that was my intent, just so you know, is what I was thinking personally. So with that, we are very close to ending this meeting for now, unless we lay it on the table and revisit it in 2 months, or it's up to the committee. If someone would like to make a motion.
I motion to refer this back to the mayor's office. There's no need for it to be in
Do you have a
council.
second?
So,
I second it.
Second. So all in favor of returning this to the mayor's office, please say aye.
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 And I'm going to vote no. With that, we'll refer it back to the mayor's office. And at that, I have another motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 10:42. Thank you, guys.